My name's John Romano. I'm the Director of Performance and Planning for Hyatt's Global Contact Centers. It is a pleasure to join all of you at this conference. To give you an idea of the footprint from a Hyatt perspective, and I'm sure most or all of you have heard of Hyatt, we're a global hospitality company. We have a little under 550 hotels that cross 8 brands on a global basis, and we're a growing chain, which we're very excited about. From a contact center perspective, not a call center, but a contact center perspective, we have 8 contact centers on a global basis. Our 2 largest centers are in North America, in Omaha, Nebraska, which is really the epicenter from a call center standpoint and infrastructure side, as well as one in Marion, Illinois, and 6 others globally. We speak 30 languages. Our philosophy is to speak the language within the region as opposed to taking a primary outsourcing model. But at the end of the day, our goal is to ultimately provide authentic hospitality. And if we were to narrow that down or streamline that definition even further from a contact center perspective, our goal is to promote ease of use at every touch point with our customers. I was blessed to be part of the implementation team a little over 4 years ago in rolling out our interactive voice assistant application and working directly with interactions. At the time, I was director of North American operations, and we had to make some tough decisions in terms of how do we go about viewing our business and what are our customers really interested in. We had to take a step back, a moment of introspection, and say, what do our callers want versus what we think they want? And ultimately, we came up with a solution that we have currently put in place. So our interactive voice assistance currently allows us to create part of the reservation or the front end of the reservation. We can change some reservations. We can recap. There's a survey at the end of those that we recap. Cancel reservations, provide some high-level property information. And then sliding to the right, from a Gold Passport perspective, you can do some basic account maintenance. There's some FAQs on there, as well as this Know Me functionality that we rolled out a little less than a year ago. To be perfectly honest and transparent, one of our greatest opportunities is on the Gold Passport side. We have about 3 million active Gold Passport members, and the functionality currently exists where an individual can sign up for this Know Me functionality, and there's some pre-authentication that can happen when they call in. So again, our goal ultimately to provide ease of use and to really allow our associates to provide a premium level of service. So to accomplish this idea of promoting ease of use, we had to have a system that delivered a high comprehension rate, which we are currently between 95 and 98% from a comprehension rate. And to accomplish that, Interactions has this mix of a hybrid where there's technology used with intent analysts to really understand and comprehend what the callers are saying. The application needs to be streamlined and scalable. And when we think of scalable, granted, we did not have, as Coke did, a commercial that rolled out during the Super Bowl and spiked traffic. But what we can have is a storm that might happen on the eastern seaboard that will immediately impact up to 75 hotels across the brand. So again, scalability was the order of business for us as well. And it needed to be an agent-like customer experience. And in one of the last slides, we'll talk about this agent-like customer experience. But what we needed is a system that was in place that would be smart, that it would be intuitive. And when a caller called in and said, I want to book your Hyatt on Wacker or your Hyatt on Michigan Avenue, when we really don't have a Hyatt on Wacker by name or a Hyatt on Michigan Avenue by name, that the system was smart enough as our associates or the individuals taking the calls would be to recognize the fact that that Hyatt on Wacker is really the reference to the Hyatt Regency Chicago, or the Hyatt on Michigan Avenue is really the Park Hyatt Chicago. So can automation assist in the sales process? What we've done is there's a case study that's available out on the interactions booth that really summarizes the findings that you're looking at here, where on the left we have really what was the utilization of the associates prior to the rollout of this interactive voice assistance versus this sample off to the right of what could it be. And this slide really balances two things, really this idea of opportunity costs associated with agents taking low value calls or transactions versus leveraging their skills and talents in terms of handling the premium calls or adding value to the call with getting that caller in the right accommodations that they ultimately need. And what we found is if we can shift the slices of this pie to really maximize the value that the associates bring, it does a couple things for us. Number one, we've estimated that it'll generate $50 to $80 million additional in revenue. But again, going back to Omaha being the epicenter from a call center perspective, it is a crazy, volatile environment from a recruiting perspective. There are lots of call centers in Omaha. I'll give you some examples. Gallup is in Omaha. Marriott is in Omaha. PayPal is in Omaha, literally within our backyard with 1,500 seats. AAA is in Omaha as well. Cabela's is in Omaha. So this idea of how do we leverage the associates that we have, continue to develop their skills, was absolutely key to us. But again, the shifting slice of the pie, $50 to $80 million in additional revenue, and we anticipate that we've had to hire between 25 and 45 less associates. So what does the system currently do? I mentioned on the front end, we can collect data in a very natural and human-like manner regarding the reservation that's about to be booked. So for example, an individual can call in and say, I want to book the Hyatt on Wacker tomorrow. It's just going to be me staying, and the intent analyst would then collect that information and ultimately push to the associate's desktop the fact that that call was for the Hyatt Regency Chicago. It would push the hotel code that would access our central res system. The associate would know what the check-in and check-out date was, as well as the number in the party. You can imagine when all of us have called in to make a reservation, how we might have referred to the dates with which we were checking in. Tomorrow might be references tomorrow. Tomorrow's date, you might be saying I'm staying for one day. The hotel reference might be an informal reference, as I gave you the example from a Park Chicago or Hyatt Regency Chicago perspective. So that information then ultimately pushes to the associate. Again, thinking of this premium value that they bring to the proposition, the associate knows what hotel to pull up and ultimately authenticate that caller and determine what would be the most appropriate accommodations for them. So then at the other end of the call, after the call is completed, the associate would then seek agreement with the caller to ultimately have them go into the to the IVR and recap that reservation. Have the opportunity to change reservations as well as cancel reservations, as well as provide property info. On the Gold Passport side, I mentioned account maintenance, frequently asked questions. Let me pull up a sound bite of a couple calls.
Welcome to Reservations. I'm here to assist you in the first step of the reservations process, then quickly get you to an associate. Please speak naturally, including dates of your travel. How may I assist you with your reservation today?
Yes, I'd like to make reservations for October. It's the UTD Supreme CCL. I would like to make reservations for Saturday night, October the 8th, Sunday night, October the 9th, and Monday night, October the 10th.
In order to look up the hotel, please tell me the name of the hotel. Or if you are unsure of the name, just tell me the city.
The city is in Atlanta, Georgia, and the name of the hotel is the Hyatt Hotels and Resort, or the Hyatt Regency Atlanta on Peachtree Street.
I found the hotel. Okay, let me confirm I have the dates correct. I have your check-in as Saturday, October 8th, for 3 nights. Checking out Tuesday, October 11th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please tell me, how many people will be in your party?
It will be me and my wife.
Thank you. An associate will be with you momentarily to check for availability.
So me and my wife is how many? Absolutely. So the intent analyst would have pushed to the associate at the contact center, at least for that part of the information too. Here's one more clip.
Thank you for choosing Hyatt Hotels and Resorts. To provide excellence in service, your call may be monitored and/or recorded. How can I help you?
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How can I help you?
I want to know the check-in time.
Let's check on your check-in and out times question. In order to look up the hotel, please tell me the name of the hotel. Or if you are unsure of the name, just tell me the city.
Hyatt Regency, Chicago.
The Hyatt Regency Chicago check-in is 3 o'clock p.m. local time, and checkout is 12 o'clock p.m. local time. How else can I help you?
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else I can assist you with?
I just want to say you are pride of artificial intelligence.
Hey, thanks for the kind words. I'll make sure that gets passed along. Is there anything else I can assist you with?
No, that's all. Thank you.
So what have the results been? We talked about the $50 to $80 million in additional revenue. We provided improved customer experience and additional options for our callers. Improved job satisfaction with the associates in terms of the calls that they're actually able to take and handle. From an efficiency perspective, I mentioned the environment in the Omaha market from a hiring and a recruiting perspective. So we've needed to hire and recruit less individuals. The front end on the call, in terms of collecting the information regarding the hotels, has resulted in about a 15% savings when we book new reservations. Those interactions, for example, the call that you just heard here with the hotel info, we're finding nearly a 95% savings on fully automated interactions. Gold Passport, again, I mentioned that was one of the areas I think that we have an opportunity to work a little closer with corporate and our marketing department to improve the offerings for the Gold Passport callers. We have a 32% resolution rate for them, and we've estimated 125% ROI year over year. I think this slide really encapsulates our journey. We're particularly proud of the fact that in 2013, Hyatt was the winner of the Best Use of Technology Award with ICMI. We were proud of that accomplishment, and it was further validated in a couple clips that we have up here. Off to the lower left, it reads, "Completely impressed with the voice recognition on the Hyatt phone reservation system. Thanks for saving me time." That really epitomizes, I think, the life that all of us lead and all of our views that really time is currency, and really having a quick and efficient experience is what it's all about. Let's take a look off to the right here. There are some things I think that are worth pointing out. I'd like to call them out. Okay, in the very first paragraph, I called Hyatt's customer service line to give interactions a try. And really, this was part of a case study that was done by a gentleman, Rob Miller, who's an associate professor of computer science at MIT that studies human-to-computer interactions. So this individual, this academic, called Hyatt's line, and this was the experience that he's summarizing. So the individual called Hyatt to give the interaction a try, and he said he was met with a pleasant, mildly robotic-sounding man's voice that answered the call, asking me how he could help. Now, there's been a lot of talk this morning about persona, and I want to share with you our journey to get to the male voice that sounds, quote-unquote, mildly robotic. At the beginning of the process or this journey, we worked with our brand team. We received from interactions 4 or 5 different sound clips. I think we received 4. 2 were male, 2 were female. So the Hyatt brand team had a lot of discussion around, should it be male, should it be female, and should there be a persona? And Hyatt, we decided from a brand perspective that we're not going to have a persona. And our thinking and our belief is that the loyalty to Hyatt is delivered through the experience that happens when you're on property. And that is face-to-face, and the persona varies from property to property. So we went with a relatively generic-sounding male voice. Now here's what I'll tell you about the persona. As we roll this out and we talk to our associates about the voice and really getting them over this cultural hump of, man, there's this machine in their mind that's sort of doing their job, and what does that mean to them? We referred to the voice, the mildly robotic sounding voice, as Joey. Why Joey? Because Joey's the name of the individual that does the recording, and we had to convince them later that when people ask, when callers ask, our persona is not Joey, it just happens to be the name of the individual that's doing the recording. So again, we made an intentional attempt not to have a persona. Next, I admittedly tried to trip up the software, stumbling over my words. Anybody that has listened to calls, anybody that has taken calls has fully experienced that. And the beauty of the intent analyst is the fact that an individual can stumble over their words, and we heard a little bit of that on the hotel information soundbite that you listened to. Next section, I spoke with one of the live agents, Brandon, who said the automated system gathers most of the information he needs and cuts down on call times by a minute or 2, a large improvement in Brandon's line of work. He also told me most customers say they like the system. I'll tell you, this jumped out at me because, again, we had to go through a cultural change organizationally to get our associates to use the information that was pushed to them via CTI in their desktop, but not overuse it, meaning not repeating everything that the caller said, but also making sure that they were fully up to speed and comfortable with the fact that this system was not put in place to replace them. It wasn't put in place to cut jobs. It was put in place to maximize and to leverage their expertise. So Brandon, the statement regarding Brandon really epitomizes along the journey of managing human behavior and associates on where the psychology is currently at. We'll have times when we'll have technology issues and the system isn't pushing information to the associates. I can tell you that now that is a huge source of frustration for them, in the rare instances that that happens, that they don't have that information that they've become so accustomed to. Last part, the time saving provided by interaction software can add up to big savings for the business. Our cost model with interactions is to pay for completed interactions. And I'll give you some examples. Since we rolled this out, have pushed about 12 million calls through the system. There have been 1.2 million recaps. There's been over 5.5 million pre-reservation qualification calls. We've done a couple 200,000 info calls, similar to the one you heard on Hyatt Regency Chicago. 150,000 changes, a couple 100,000 cancels, and 300,000 relocations. We talked about scalability, and I mentioned storms on the eastern seaboard impacting multiple hotels. Over the past 3 or 4 years, I mean, all of us that travel have, I'm sure, experienced travel delays, whether it was forest fire related on the West Coast and in California, or whether it was storms related on the East Coast or hurricanes and so forth. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to leverage, as one of the value add from a platform perspective, how we go about handling these calls when an individual is calling in wanting to cancel a reservation or check for availability, when indeed we don't have availability in some of these areas that are, you know, getting pounded by a storm, because there's a lot of local traffic that'll then start staying at the hotels, to really offload that increase or that spike in call volume and quickly get to the caller the information that they ultimately need. And that would pertain to whether or not we have availability at the hotels and what we're doing from a cancellation perspective. I'd mentioned that there's a case study that's available out on the interactions desk that was completed by Opus. Dan Fox's contact information is up there, and I'm sure he's going to be out at the booth should you have any questions. My contact information is listed there as well. So from a next step perspective, we were chatting at dinner last night in terms of what direction do we see this really going with Hyatt. And I can see in the immediate horizon really the use of this automation from a collection of credit card information and shifting that from Hyatt or from our associates ultimately to this automated assistant, and really leveraging that portion of it and then further developing into recapping. We have the opportunity to integrate, instead of push via CTI to the associate's desktop, to integrate this technology within our central res system. Caller authentication is still one of our, I think, our greatest opportunities that we can customize these calls. And again, working with our Gold Passport department and marketing department and really leveraging the technology that's available to customize that call based on when you're calling in and what proximity is that to your reservation. And I guess at the end of the day, it's boiling down to what my opening comments were, and that's really promoting and driving a low effort experience or a guided resolution that ultimately gets the caller what they need versus what we think they want. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
So you mentioned credit card processing. What about hooking into your availability so you could take the caller one step further? Is the reason you haven't done it because it's a lot of work, or are you planning to do it? How do you see that going forward with checking availability and even completing the whole thing without an agent present, having the virtual assistant do the whole reservation system?
So you're asking regarding credit card as well as booking an entire reservation?
Correct. Mostly availability checking. You brought up credit cards. That's the next step, I guess, for reservation.
Yeah, you know
but
what?
I'm mostly interested in checking availability. But.
Yeah, we're having discussions now around that, and I mean, it can be a pretty complex proposition based on rates, availability, room type, groups, and so forth. What our thinking is in terms of checking availability and booking a full reservation, is we would likely start with, for lack of a better term, a captive market, and that might be simply booking a Gold Passport reservation where there are points required to book that reservation, and then continue the process from there. From a credit card perspective, we really envision at some point taking that portion of the call where the associate is collecting that credit card information from the caller and really utilize this IVR to collect that information. And our thinking is that it's going to give our consumers, our callers, a greater sense of confidence in terms of the information and the security of their information from an efficiency perspective. Again, opportunity cost is associated with all of that, as well as a recap. We'd like to leverage the technology that's out there and available to handle that portion of the call.
So you are planning to do all of that?
We are, absolutely.
Gotcha.
So while you were speaking, I can't help but think, what's next, right? You're talking about the IVR and the contact center and some of the successes that you've had, but I think there's also opportunity to expand beyond the IVR, right, to cross-channel implementations and integrations. And I think the obvious ones would be web and mobile, but there could be some unique and cool use cases from a check-in perspective while you're within the property, or questions or needs that come up while you're staying at your properties. So I'd love to hear if you guys are thinking beyond that and exploring different channel implementations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we're giving it a lot of thought to and starting to structure some strategy around is understanding, for example, from a geofencing perspective, who's calling? Are they calling from a mobile? If they are, where are they at within proximity to the hotel? So let's take a couple of examples. We have a storm in Denver, and if we know where that caller is calling from through their mobile, we can serve up a different experience for them versus the individual who's geofenced within X proximity from the hotel, where the probability is that they need something hotel related. So yeah, this is it's an exciting space to be in, but obviously the integration of technology and user need and all that is where the opportunity lies.
Great. Any further questions? Oh.
So when the caller comes in, you look at that telephone number, you can say, oh, that's a little passport number.
We have upwards of 1,000 lines coming in, and we know the nature of the call based on the line. So for example, if a caller was calling in, going back to the Hyatt Regency Chicago example, we would know based on the number they dialed that they were calling for the Hyatt Regency Chicago. We have dedicated phone numbers for our Gold Passport members, whether that's at the member level, platinum level, or diamond level. I also referenced the Know Me functionality that is again needing to get legs, but there's an option that you can sign up for, that you can register your phone number, multiple phone numbers, so when you would call in, there's a pre-authentication that takes place. Your Gold Passport number and your tier status would then pass to the associate as you being pre-authenticated.
But it doesn't change the experience based on that tier.
It will change the experience. And I say it will change the experience because signing up for the Know Me functionality, there are certain questions that become part of the experience of booking a reservation that I like to call sort of the warning label on a pack of cigarettes. Number one, if you change your dates of stay, what do you think is going to happen with your rate? It could change, right? So you are advised of that every time there is a recap. Advising someone that their privacy, protecting their privacy is important to us and where they can go to find out more information about that happens on every single call and every single recap. So what we've designed in this Know Me functionality is this idea of a checkbox where there's some questions that you can respond to on an annual basis and acknowledge the fact that you realize that, yeah, if my dates changed and rates change, yeah, or if my dates of stay change, my rate could change, and privacy is important and so forth, to then down the road be able to tailor the experience on that recap where you don't hear that because you already know.
Great. Well, thank you. I think in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and cut off questions for now, but let's give a round of applause for John.